Hello, everyone. This is Emily. We wanted to say a quick thanks to our Patreon members who have supported us at the Lords and Ladies tiers or above. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, so let us know if we get it right in the comments. But thank you to Carolyn Ingrid, Emily Blomer, Jackie Moore, Catherine Denny, Marlena, Melissa S., Philip Nako, Rhiannon Jepson, Samantha Martin, Taylor McHarg, Tiffany, and Tiffany Anderson. And remember, if you want to hear your name shouted out, or if you want to join our book club, any of those awesome benefits you get as a Patreon member, you can find us by searching Tutor I Hardly Know Her on patreon.com. Now on to the show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's rock these socks. Hello.
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 Bonjour.
And welcome
to another exciting episode of Tutor I Hardly Know Her.
The
Although
ASMR version.
welcome.
Hold on. Let me get the ASMR.
I'm in your ears.
I really don't like ASMR.
I'm tickling your ears from the inside.
No.
Oh my God, Jeff, do it. Oh. Whisper ear. That did feel kind of good. Do it again.
Oh God, no, stop. Ugh.
Tickle.
Oh,
That gave me chills in a bad way.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
more like Tudor, I hardly heard her, am I right? Because she's whispering.
Oh God.
I
So this is not a porn talk today.
No,
Sorry.
sorry guys.
Sorry, everyone. We know that y'all loved it.
It had me laughing too.
All you
Like,
horny listeners all wanted to hear it.
you sick bastards. This is a Christian show.
As you can fucking tell.
That's a very special Patreon tier where you pay $100
Ew.
and we just have sex talk.
No.
Jeff and Emily give me the talk.
Carrot, when two people love each other or they're really horny,
They behead or divorce or die.
they die. And then they divorce and then they behead and then they die.
When a man loves a woman very much, he may kill her, he may marry her, or he may just throw her to the curb.
They may find you very attractive and this may kill you over it.
Jeff and I have been quoting John Mulaney all week for some reason. If you guys want a real laugh, go watch John Mulaney's stand-up on Netflix.
They're
'Cause
great.
it's fucking
Which one?
The most,
Any.
the most
All
recent
of
one.
them.
The most recent one was really great, but yeah, any of
Oh
them.
God.
There's our
Black coffee.
There's our plug.
Yeah, we don't get paid by John Mulaney to say this, so. But this week's topic. So, thank you guys for understanding that I have a fussy baby who doesn't necessarily care what the fuck I want to do. So we do have.
I know, right? What a selfish little prick.
I'm gonna tell her Uncle Garrett said that.
She loves me. She'll never hate me.
Oh, she does. Next time she's really fussy, we're gonna make you read either Go the Fuck to Sleep or K is for Knife Ball to her again, because those things, like, you knock her out with your voice. It's great. No, so thank you again, but also thank you for such great topic suggestions. I'm actually using one of the topics you guys suggested
Ooh.
for this week's episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, so some of them I thought were really great, and I want to kind of talk about those at the end. So don't sign off once we stop talking about Lady Jane Grey, because I do have some questions for our listeners and for Garrett and Jeff, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Lady Jane Grey, because we have not really had the chance to delve into her.
I already know about her.
What do you know about her?
So she was dating this guy named Scott Summers, and they all went to school together with these other people who are a bunch of kind of like weirdos and freaks and geeks. And then they went into space, and she died. But then she came back as something called like the Phoenix, and then she went crazy, and she was all powerful, and it was great.
And there's that one badass student who showed up later on who's like, I love you, Gene.
Oh yeah, Gene. That's X-Men, by the way. That's all just X-Men.
Suck
Okay. We're not getting to that, Jane Grey.
No, but Garrett, can you say Sookie again?
Hold on. I've got donut in my mouth.
Welcome back to Porn Talk.
All right, ready? Okay.
I'm gonna make that my text message alert. But not him doing it. Like, I want you.
I can do that for you.
No. So today we are actually just talking about Jane Grey of the 1500s, Gare. So
Gotcha.
not that that really says we can't talk about the X-Men, because let's be serious, there've probably been, I mean, we know there's time travel in the X-Men universe, but
And mutants have been around for, like centuries at that point.
okay, what if Lady Jane Grey was a mutant?
Okay, what's her special power?
I don't know. I think there are a couple options, mostly Protestantism.
Well, see, Henry VIII was a late bloomer mutant. He became the Blob later on in his life.
Oh, poor Henry.
Oh no. Okay, let's go back to actual Lady Jane Grey.
Okay.
I just want to start with a fun fact that I discovered. She was so short that she literally wore platform shoes.
What? How short was she?
Short enough for platform shoes.
Like Edna Mode short.
I don't know. It just said that she was so short she had to wear they called them elevator shoes. So
What you talking about, Henry?
All right, let's find out.
just wanted to start that off. So I don't know why I immediately was like, she was queen for 9 days. She's called the 9-day queen. But for some reason, my first thought was, how many times could you get to the moon in 9 days? So during her reign, you could get to the moon and back twice. Because it really only takes 3 days to get to the moon.
Yeah, weirdly, it's crazy
Like-
to think how short of a distance that is.
That's also a drive across country
Yeah.
for America.
Yeah. Well, of course, they're going much faster than my
Well,
car.
yeah, but it's still 3 days. Like, it's just kind of interesting to think about.
I can
but
barely last 2 days in a car with my family on a road trip. Imagine having to be stuck in a spaceship for 3 days, or you can't move from your seat.
I think you can move.
I mean, sort of, but you're still kind of like we watched the First Man movie, and they're like strapped to those chairs like the entire time.
That was in 1969.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay, so just to recap on Lady Jane Grey, what we've already discussed. I mean, we kind of discussed a little bit. We did a broad portrait of her life, if you will. But just a couple things to remember. Henry VIII, Henry VII had 4 children that reached adulthood. His son Arthur died after too much marriage. Margaret became Queen of Scotland. We all know what happened to Henry, and then the relationship we really care about right now is his daughter Mary, and she was the one who ultimately ended up married to Charles Brandon, and they had a daughter named Frances. So Frances is typically portrayed as like kind of a bitch, like hardcore bitch, but
How so?
if we're looking at Frances through the lens of history and how women are quote unquote supposed to be, anything that was not, any woman who is not aligning with the ideals of women for that time were considered like bitchy or masculine. I mean, they still are for serious, but she was considered, so she was very ambitious for her family.
So she's a rebel.
No, she wanted her family to do well. And because of the historians who covered her and the time period they covered her, so like, almost throughout all of history, women are supposed to be demure and they're not supposed to really be in charge. So any woman who doesn't align with that is seen as like, oh, she decided that her family should be doing well instead of her husband. Clearly she's a bitch. And like,
Sure, she has opinions. Ugh.
let's be serious. Most women are
Burn her
still
at the
kind of
fucking
viewed like
stake.
that. Yeah. Right. So, Anyway, Frances was married to Henry Grey, who, fun fact, was related to Queen Elizabeth Woodville, but not through her marriage that made her royal. It was through her first marriage. So he wasn't royal, but Frances was. So they had a couple of daughters. We've talked about them before, Catherine, Mary, and Jane. Very exciting names.
Oh my! You just list off those names. I'm like, I
know.
don't know who these are supposed to be or
I
who is
know.
going to actually be important.
Don't worry, we're just going to focus on Jane. So Jane was raised Protestant to the core. She was very studious, a very serious girl because she was beheaded at 16, so she never even became an official woman. But she was very studious, and it was partly because her family always imagined her marrying King Edward, who, yes, was her cousin. Let's move past that. But because Edward was super Protestant, as we've talked about how zealous he was in his pursuit of Protestantism, they were like, well, we'll just make Jane his perfect match.
You know, when he was like 13.
Yeah. So her parents have this reputation as being abusive because at one point, it was reported after Jane's death, please keep that in mind, that she had written her teacher or somebody a note saying that she was so grateful for her teacher because he was so gentle, whereas her parents would pinch her until she behaved or until she met.
Weird.
So, but once again, it's one of those things that was written after she died while Mary was queen. So we have to remember that. And we also have to remember that the ideals for parents were quite different. Like, parents back then were very rarely like loving, involved day to day in the raising of their children. Like the kids would come down once a day and be like,
you would send them off to their tutors or whatever, the other people were teaching them this stuff or raising them.
Yes, exactly.
Is my kid doing all right?
Not
All right, I
that
guess we'll
not
keep him
that
another day.
slapping your kid is ever okay, but corporal punishment was kind of the only way to parent for thousands of years.
Well, especially for anyone in the upper classes, when really reproducing was just like
You had to do it.
Was maintaining your power and control of
Exactly.
things. Like I'm like, your wife is just there to birth another person to keep the line going and keep ownership to all their property.
Exactly.
And pass it down to someone else.
That's like a thing to me. Like it. When I hear accounts like that, it's like, oh, well, like parents didn't really care that much about their kids. But then in other accounts, it's like they really cared about their kids more than anything else in the world.
So, I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same way it is today. Some people have kids because they think that's what they're supposed to do. Now, I think it's more acceptable to say you don't want children nowadays, for the most part. But I don't know. Even back then, I think you could still love your kid, but I mean, even if you think back to like 50 years ago, people were like, don't show your kid too much love or they're gonna turn out to be like spoiled or shitty or incapable. Like, this nurture a child and love your child and play with your child, it's cultural, but it's also,
Well, you think about the idea of what family was in like the 50s, that classic, like, the man in the household came home and got his dinner. His wife.
he got a scotch, she rubbed his feet, and she served him dinner, and the kids were to be seen, not heard.
Yep.
So, and it's also very cultural. Like, I was reading a book, and it was nonfiction, but it was talking about Puritans who were like, you can't show your children your love. You have to discipline them because that's how they follow the word of God, and really only God can show them love. So blah 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 blah. But then this woman was captured by Native Americans, and Native Americans that were very affectionate with their children. They would play with them. The kids would run around playing with each other. So just keep it in mind. I'm not saying I don't believe she was abused. It just might be a perception of what we consider abuse versus parenting back then.
The definition of abuse has changed throughout the years, especially when it comes to child rearing.
Absolutely. And somebody back then could have been like, oh, you don't hit your kids, you're abusive. Because
like when I was raised, I got smacked in the mouth for like talking back or like saying bad words, like all the time, spanked, and
but
it
our
was just
parents
normal.
never saw that as abuse. It was just like,
Yeah.
and I feel like this is a much bigger conversation. I really don't want to be pulled into it. Like, Either way. But the reason I brought that up is because there's this book. It's actually on my read to read list. It's called The Sisters Who Would Be Queen, and it's all about the Grey sisters. And the author finds a little bit more research into Jane Grey and the reality of what life was like at that time to kind of draw a, well, not comparison, but to kind of put it in the appropriate lens. So I want to read that book. Listeners, you should also want to read that book. Anyway, I started writing something here, but I didn't finish it. Either way. So, Jane was educated and basically raised to hopefully become the wife of Edward, the king. Her family wanted that for her, and obviously it didn't work out, but it was mostly because Edward was dying and the family knew that. But so there's another person who's important in this, and it's John Dudley, who is the Duke of Northumberland. And because Edward was under the age of, I think you actually didn't take reign until you were 18, though if they thought you mature enough at 15 or whatever, then you could. But either way, John Dudley ruled the dork of Northumberland.
What a dork.
The Duke of Northumberland. He basically was in charge while Edward was king. And when he saw that Edward was dying, he knew that if his sisters came to power, if either Mary or Elizabeth came to power, he would not have any sort of say. First, because he was Protestant, so Mary wasn't likely to let that happen. But then Elizabeth was known even then as being very strong-willed. So Northumberland really wanted to stay in power. So he convinced Edward that his sister shouldn't be queen. He did a basic calculation and figured out that Jane was next in line. And so he arranged for his son, the famous Guildford, we've talked about him before because he's got a stupid name, to marry Jane. And originally they were like, get married, but don't bang. That way if something goes wrong, we can annul the marriage. So they got married in 1553.
We get them married, but we don't let them share a room. That's how...
Yeah, basically. I mean, and that's come up a couple times if you guys remember. Like Mary, I think Catherine of Aragon was maybe told not to. I don't know. That might be in a book. So then as
don't have sex with Arthur, or
do have sex,
or do you even want to have sex with Arthur?
Ugh, not if it's the Arthur from that awful
Sex with Arthur?
Not with that show.
The Spanish princess.
But then, oh God, we never finished that. Then Edward clearly began to die. And so...
oh, he's clearly dying now.
like tongue sticking out
Idiot.
of his mouth.
Kicks him, pokes him with a stick.
He's just sitting there like, what'd you say? Nothing, my lord. You're fine.
But so as he started to die, the Duke was like, go ahead and bang. Like, just get it over with.
Fuck it. No pun intended.
But guys, can you imagine your parents being that involved in your sex life? Like,
honey, don't have sex. Okay, honey, now have sex.
hey, Mom.
We'll wait.
Why are you not
Mom,
having sex?
I'm 15. Could you stop?
I know you're getting old.
You're past you're
Nobody will
you're
love you now.
basically a spinster with your dried up husk of a womb. And so Northumberland then convinced Edward that his sisters couldn't inherit, and it really wasn't that difficult because Edward didn't see them as Edward saw them as bastards anyway. So he was like, well, according to the laws of Christ, neither of them are legitimate. If Edward was born today, his name would be Chad. Like, he was kind of like, he sounds like such a little shit. Like,
Hey, I know a Chad, and he's great.
he's probably a little shit sometimes, though.
He's a big shit sometimes.
So,
I'm Chad.
and then the view of women as rulers as well was still not okay back then. Hence Henry VIII divorcing and executing and all that to his wives in order to get a son. So Edward also realized that if he made Jane queen, then having somebody he trusted in real power, being the Duke of Northumberland, it would be totally fine. The council was like, so the royal council had to have a say in it, and they were like, okay, but mostly because we just do what we're told at this point. Like, well, you're here, it's fine. Maybe Edward will get better. So then, as Edward got worse and worse, Northumberland wanted to get his sisters under his control. So as Edward was dying, he summoned them to Edward's bedside. Mary was like, "Sure, I'll go say goodbye to my brother." Halfway there, somebody was like, "It's a trap." Akbar was over on the left.
Oh my God, that's a trap.
Elizabeth was a little smarter, and she was like, "I can't go. I'm sick." So
I've got the black lung pop.
So Elizabeth pretended she had the black lung, and she didn't go, and Mary turned around. So then Edward / Chad, I'm just going to call him Chadward. He died. Chadward. He died on July 6th, but it wasn't publicly announced yet, and Mary only kind of accidentally found out. In that time, though...
Oh, whoops, he's dead.
So before Edward died, Jane had been told that they were going to make her queen, but she was like, yeah, whatever, sure. Like that'll happen.
Like anything will actually happen with that.
Right. But then since he died, on July 9th, she was taken to Northumberland's mansion. And there she found her parents, her father-in-law, Northumberland, and her douchey husband, Guildford, as well as certain members of the council. And they were like, "Hey, Your Majesty, your queen."
By the way.
Hey, girl.
Yes, queen.
Oh,
I hate that
God.
phrase.
Yes.
Yes, queen. So they made her queen, and she fainted. And then she was,
As women are wont to do.
all right. Oh. But then eventually they I don't know, slapped her, put salt under her nose or something.
Wake up.
So she was like,
Oh my
okay,
God.
if what has been given to me is actually mine, or is lawfully mine, so she accepted that she was queen. So she also recognized the danger of the situation because, first of all, Northumberland was very strongly disliked by the country, and Mary, as a daughter of Henry Tudor, was much beloved. So she ended up going to the Tower because, remember, the Tower wasn't always a prison; it was a palace.
Mary, she's at least Catherine of Aragon's daughter on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we know she's a badass and will get her way.
She'll not be poorly named in her later life.
Right. I doubt she'd be given a horrible moniker such as Bloody Mary.
You know what? That's when you just own the nickname.
Right? She covers herself in blood.
Oh, God.
I'm Bloody Mary. I'm metal.
God, that would be such a badass metal band. Bloody Mary.
Oh, I'm sure there's a metal band called Bloody Mary.
All right, let's find it and post it. Or at least a song. So,
Oh, I'm sure there's tons of songs related to Bloody Mary.
yeah, there's probably still many.
We're
so,
Bloody Mary, and this song is called The Murderer of England.
I'm glad they're British because it's really only appropriate that they would be.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think Bloody Mary's #1 hit is? Fire and Heresy.
That's good. That's real good.
Quite contrary.
So Jane, sorry, black lung. So Jane went to the Tower, which, remember, it wasn't just a prison; it was also a palace. And
It's where they wanted to be. It's just like a community room. You get to rent a space out. This week
It's not so much a prison as it's a home.
there's a sign in the front this week bingo. Next week prison. Week after that family vacation time.
week after that, community room.
Where's the blood from? Oh, you could either be from that prisoner or the bingo. We're not sure.
Bingo gets real dusty up in England. So she was at the Tower, and she later that same day where she fainted upon being told she was queen, she went to the Tower and she tried on the crown, upon which she fainted again. She's just not doing a lot for her. I'm a strong, independent woman. So it was pronounced to the public that day, and they were not fucking happy. There was like stony silence. It was like cricket. In fact, one guy, he was like, I think Mary would have been a better queen, and he had his ears fucking chopped off.
Listen here.
said that?
Oh wait.
Who the fuck said that?
Tim. No, what? No, no, it wasn't me. I didn't say a thing.
Jerry, you asshole.
What? I can't hear you. Oh.
Whackity schmackity doo.
So Jane knew that that Northumberland was trying to use her to be in charge, but it doesn't mean she was going to oblige to that. The day she was told she was queen, she flat out refused to name her husband as king. She said he'd only be a duke. It apparently led to a big fight with like everybody involved: her mother, Northumberland, and of course douchey Guildford.
So it became a Jerry Springer scenario.
What a fucking power move, though.
Right. She was kind of like, it's weird because she's like fainting upon trying on the crown, but also like, fuck you, he's not going to be king. I'm the one with royal blood. And she didn't back down from that for a whole 9 days until
I think
she was deposed.
it was a couple years ago at the Oscars when Frances McDormand won an Oscar.
Yeah.
She like came up. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so speechless because I have things to say." Like she just like in a turn, like she's.
That's Jane Grey.
Yeah.
Yes, let's find that. So she also knew that Northumberland was disliked, so she tried to establish independence by like signing documents in her own hand and all that, but really in 9 days she didn't get to establish that independence from him.
I'm gonna get so much done. She didn't.
Meet Jane. She's a spunky, independent woman raised in Protestant England.
Oh, and she's dead.
And she died. So when she was named queen, Dudley Northumberland, I'll try and keep it consistent, he gathered his own army, and 2 days into Jane's reign, he left because Mary had built up her own army, which was much bigger because England was like, yeah, she's Henry Tudor's fucking daughter, guys. Catherine of Aragon's child. Like, she should absolutely be queen.
The ultimate do you know who I am move.
It was absolutely a do you know who I am. She even gave herself a bitchy rich housewife haircut beforehand. It was powerful.
Queen Karen.
Can I talk to your manager, please?
Oh, God, she had the strongest.
Can I speak to your
him?
king? Yeah, I want to speak with the king of this castle.
So,
I don't care. I want to speak to the king.
do you know who the fuck I am? Do you know who my father is?
I will have your job.
I will get you fucking executed. I have so much power you don't even know. So as soon as Northumberland left, though, the council was like, fuck that guy. Like, he's a traitor. We know that. We declare Mary the queen. So Jane, who had previously been residing in the Tower as a queen, then was residing in the Tower as a traitor. It didn't quite happen like 1 minute then the next because Mary still had to enter London. But very quickly, Northumberland's army deserted him, and on July 20th, Jane was imprisoned along with her husband. No, that's not important. So Jane was deposed, and her father-in-law was quickly executed on August 23rd. She condemned her father-in-law for bringing misfortune to her family, that's once again like maybe she had a shitty relationship with her mother, or maybe she had a fine relationship with her mother. So like, I mean, she clearly cares about what's happening to her family.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, so Mary was like, I know she's a pawn. Maybe we could give her a pardon eventually. I'll just keep her in the Tower for now. But then...
If all else fails, Tower.
Right. But then Jane's dumbass father... oh no. First, Jane didn't do much to endear herself to Mary. She had rejected gifts previously from her.
Ooh.
She was like, being a Catholic is all about showing your wealth, and if you're really a disciple of Christ, then you should be dressing in black and white, and you should be very strict, and you don't need jewels. And so she had previously rejected gifts from from Mary, and then when Mary was like, we're bringing the Catholic Mass back, Jane wrote a very condemning letter of the Catholic Mass, and she told Protestants to return again unto Christ's war, which I'm sure didn't make Mary feel very good. And then her dumbass father joined Wyatt's rebellion in January 1554, so that basically condemned Jane. It definitely proved that she was a potential threat. Even if she wasn't doing anything, her existence gave a rallying point for people who didn't agree with Catholic Mass. So on February 12th, she was executed. And when she took to the, not platform, the executioner's stage, she announced that though
the B-wing.
she enter stage left. Though she was guilty of the law of treason, she never sought the throne but merely accepted it. And that's one of the articles I was reading suggested that that's kind of what gave rise to this, like a lot of the myths of Lady Jane Grey, meaning that like she didn't really want it. And I think in the Helena Bonham Carter movie, there is a scene where like her parents slap her upon, like she's like, they're like, you're queen, and she goes, I don't really want to be, and so they like slap her or something.
Yes, you do. Okay.
Okay.
We
It's
do
like,
want to be queen. We do.
it's like
I mean, you
Pavlov's
do.
dogs. So, yeah, that's Lady Jane Grey's reign, which I was like really hoping I'd find something out about, like, I know it's only 9 days, but did she like have an opportunity to write like a
Single law or rule.
manifesto, or like, this is what I'd hope to accomplish in my
She didn't get to put her monogram logo on any of those towels.
I know. She
You know
just,
what it was? I bet she had just like some of the dumbest, worst like things that she wanted to enact, and they're like, we got to put this kid down.
All right, wait, let's talk about what could Jane have wanted to incorporate that was so stupid that the country was like, fuck off.
I want to open
Second breakfast.
an area of mini shops. We will call it the mini mall.
She actually, interestingly, she proposed a bunch of ideas which were way too advanced for the 1550s. Like, she was like, I think women should have the right to vote. And they're like,
Kill
what?
her.
They're like, what's a vote?
What's a vote?
Nope, so that's Lady Jane Grey.
Poor girl, we got to put her down.
Oh, dear God.
Take her out back.
Who invented the shotgun?
Guys, this is really necessary.
She's got the mad dog disease. Take her back.
Nope, that's Lady Jane Grey. So one thing, while I was reading this, there was a article, and I can't remember what it is, but if you just Google Lady Jane Grey, you'll find it in one of the first ones. But there is a famous portrait from 1833 of Lady Jane Grey's execution. And she's like dressed all in white to represent like she's this virginal pawn. She didn't really deserve any of the things that happened to her. And I don't know why, but whoever wrote the article wanted to add a point that there was somebody, I'm sure somebody famous in historical circles, who admitted that this portrait, as a young child, this woman had experienced like, what was the phrase? Like a sexual awakening based on this portrait. And I think the
What?
point was supposed to be that like she's like this virginal beautiful woman, like kind of inspired it, but it's also an execution. So I'm kind of worried about the person's being a sociopath, that they're like, oh god, yeah, this execution, let's call it a sexecution.
She went to
God
write
damn it.
She went to go write the great trilogy of 50 Shades of Grey,
The first
Oh my
based off
God.
Lady Jane Grey.
50 Shades of Jane Grey.
She's all bound up, and they're like, huh.
I know what our
This
episode's
is
called.
kind of hot, and I don't know if I'm supposed to like it or not.
And that's how BDSM was invented. Yes,
Back to the porn talk.
always.
It always comes back to porn.
It always does. Like, let's face it. So that is Lady Jane Grey and her very short 9 days reign.
So whenever they're like teaching, like that song we had where it was going through the different kings and queens, did she mention that at all?
No. And I think it's because she wasn't and neither was Empress Matilda, who is technically queen. And I think it's because
Did she have? So she have any kind of coronation or anything
no,
like that?
no.
So that's probably why.
Coronations took months to prepare.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
that might be.
No coronation. No bishop was like, "Yes, I will bless you with the oil of the kingdom."
Quick sidestep. Who was the first queen of England?
Mary Tudor.
Mary Tudor was the first queen? Mm-hmm. Oh, shit. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I'm now that's if you ignore Empress Matilda. So
Yeah.
William the Conqueror had a bunch of children, and all of the sons died, and so his daughter,
Shocker.
his daughter Matilda. You know, how were so many men in charge when they are such weak ass bitches that they just keep on dying at like 12 years old?
Hey, so a weird thing, all the boys keep dying. Like, should we like try for a girl this time?
No.
That.
No.
They don't know what they're doing.
I hardly
They're
doubt
hysterical.
I hardly doubt in any history a woman's going to let reign forever. And
Let's
A woman in charge.
it actually is kind of crazy to think that the longest reigning like monarchies of England are
women.
Like,
well,
See?
Elizabeth,
remember,
Victoria, and now Queen Elizabeth
well,
again.
just historically remember that women live longer than men.
Probably for good reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for that reminder.
Oh, you're gonna die before me.
You're going to die soon.
Not soon, Jesus, Jeff.
We don't know that.
Jeff, do we need to talk to somebody?
I think this
No.
this podcast will be
Used
I think
as
it stands up in
evidence in court.
yeah.
Garrett, please don't mysteriously die.
Please, for the love of God, don't.
Can you just write a note saying it wasn't Jeff and slip it in your pocket? I'm sure that.
Not suspicious at all.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. I told our listeners not to turn off after we stopped talking about Jane Grey because I had questions for them, and now I'm like talking about. Okay.
Any of our listeners should know that if you tune out before the actual end of the episode,
You'll
then you
miss
fucked
the
up.
best stuff. Okay, so here's what I wanted to ask you guys and our listeners. So when we posted the other day about what topics you'd like to hear, I actually got a big list of episodes that I wouldn't have traditionally considered Tudor. Like there was a request for more information on James I, Anne Neville, Richard III. And I love the idea of doing that. So listeners and Jeff and Garrett, what do you guys think of not just Patreon episodes being about non-Tudor topics, but maybe expanding our repertoire of topics we cover?
I don't care.
I mean, the whole point.
He's so invested.
The whole point is I'm supposed to learn stuff.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'll pose this to
We
our
gotta
listeners.
stick with the theme of the podcast name. If we don't, then it doesn't make any sense.
No,
gonna start hearing all
let's
sort-
talk
we're
about rebranding.
We're gonna start having all these things like they don't even talk about tutors anymore.
Yeah, whatever. Well, no, I was just thinking I've been listening to a lot of podcasts for years, and they've kind of like one Jeff listens to now is called Blank Check, and the whole thing actually started out as a podcast about the Phantom Menace.
It really started about the Star Wars
Yeah.
movies exclusively, and then it just became about like directors, and even then, like when they pick
Yeah.
some, they're like kind of
So
on the rules of
so
who they choose.
here's
And I'm sure Henry VIII is listening from beyond the grave saying, come on, guys, it's not that much.
I mean I do still have a lot of
Talk about
topics
me more.
Oh, no, there's definitely going to be a ton.
I definitely still have a lot of topics to talk about, but to our listeners, would you like to
Occasionally
see
branch
us
off.
expand beyond maybe to the right before and right after the Tudors? So like we could talk more about the Wars of the Roses and the Plantagenets of the like 1450s on up to maybe like Charles the First. So listeners, I'll also post this on Twitter and Facebook. Let us know what you think. I'm happy to stick with the Tudor talk because I love it, but I'd also be happy to discuss a little bit more. I guess the real question is, do you tune in because we talk Tudors, or do you tune in because you fucking love Emily, Jeff, and Garrett?
I'll wait for the response.
I'll wait. So just food for thought. We'll keep going tutors for the immediate future, but future planning. And that wraps up today's episode.
Hooray.
Garrett, where can our listeners find us?
If you're looking for Tutor I Hardly Know Her, you can find us on iTunes. Tutor I Hardly Know Her. But that's probably how you're listening to us now, unless you're using Spotify or anything like that. Yeah, we're on Spotify too. Crazy, right? Weird to see my mean mug up there on on Spotify. You can also find us on Facebook at Tutor I Hardly Know Her, or on Twitter at Tutor Know Her. Or email us at tutorknowher@gmail.com. Also, consider donating to our Patreon. Patreon.com/tutor I Hardly Know Her. I think that's right. I was on a good roll with my goofy voice. It's patreon.com/tutor know her.
Tudor.
So for as low as $1, you can get every one of our bonus episodes that we've done. So far, it's mostly been commentaries on the other Berlin Girl, which we just recently dropped. We've got some
Emily's
other stuff.
book club coming up.
Yep.
And then we've also got different tiers, like Lords and Ladies at $5. You get a shout out before the episode. You get part of a Q&A episode with us or a Q&A like session that we're going to plan on doing sometime very, very soon, as well as all the bonus episodes. Up to $15, you can join Emily's book club plus access to bonus episodes.
Yep.
And then finally, the Groom of the Stool at $50 a month, which is, a higher tier, but that's because you get a sponsorship on the episode. We'll read ad copy for you and promote whatever business or podcast, or just you just get a huge special shout out to yourself.
Yes, sir.
And we're still looking at how we're going to refine some of these, maybe add or improve on some of these benefits. So
Always. I like
always.
it. Actually, I'm going to recommend another tutors thing. It's called Tutors Dynasty, and they're doing a really cool competition right now. I don't know how long it lasts, but if you go to Tutors Dynasty on Instagram, you can see that they're running a really cool contest, and you can win a bunch of books and an Anne Boleyn bee necklace. So go check out.
the actual one.
Yes, they went to the grave and took it out.
They finally figured out where she was buried and unburied her.
No, it's a replica, which I want one day. So there's a couple of these books, and if you want to go check it out, it's just if you go to Tutors Dynasty, and their contest involves Patreon. So just a little plug for one of my favorite tutor sites. They did not pay $50 for that, so you can send us a check payable to Emily Simpson. No, I'm just kidding. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great time. And again, if you've sent us an email or a Facebook message or something within the last while and we have not gotten to it, please, we're very sorry. We get busy, and there's just a lot
Yes.
in life.
Yep.
But we will get to you. We promise.
We love you.
Bug us again. Bug us again.
Bug us over and over and over again.
Bug.
So until next time,
Until next time.
Divorce
Beheaded, died.
Divorce, beheaded, survived.
Goodbye.
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 Farewell.